We're back with Meadow Rue Merrill, the author of Redeeming Ruth. And Meadow, as you've told us, you meet this little girl named Ruth from Uganda who is deaf, has cerebral palsy, but you decide to adopt her. And so as you're now pregnant with another child during this journey, and you have a little son.
That's right.
And so now it's taking care of now 5 kids.
That's right.
At that point, I'm trying to count all the 4, 5. Yes,
every night.
At that point, it was, are they all here?
Exactly.
And so it's getting Ruth into school, and she's progressing well.
Yeah, she was doing phenomenally well. You know, when we brought Ruth into our home, a neurologist had said that she was so profoundly affected intellectually that she wouldn't know the difference whether we adopted her or not. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't believe that, but as Ruth continued to grow, she blew everybody away. She was learning to read, learning to, spell, or adding numbers, and it was such a joy to see her expressing herself that way.
She even got an implant. Tell us about that.
She did. So we began learning sign language while Ruth was going to a school for the deaf. She was 4 years old when she qualified for a cochlear implant, which is a surgery that allows the deaf to hear. And it's a very technologically, complicated. So we weren't sure that she was going to understand spoken English. We were warned that she probably wouldn't. And yet again, Ruth learned spoken English so well to understand what we were saying that she no longer qualified for a deaf education.
So she was moved into what would be seen as a normal school, normal class. She made friends, even had a little boyfriend.
Very sweet. Yeah.
And then one day she had a fever. Tell us about that.
Right. Dana and I were always watching Ruth to make sure that she wasn't, sick or compromised with her eating and her breathing. And one day she had a fever. It didn't seem like anything of a real concern, other than at the end of the week it came back. And so we called her doctor. What should we do? We followed his instructions. The fever went away and Ruth seemed fine until the night in February that week that my husband put her to bed. And in the morning when he went down to check on her, Ruth had passed away in her sleep.
And tell me about that feeling as a mother, because I know you didn't even want to go into the room.
Right.
Because you felt if you looked inside that it would make it official.
Yes, it was a horror. All I can describe is the devastation of feeling like something had happened or gone so wrong that we couldn't fix it. And our whole lives up to that point had been wrapped around trying to help Ruth and meet her needs, and she was gone. And I felt like we had either failed God or he had failed us.
And you even, I love, again, your authenticity in this book. You say that you questioned just God and just why would he allow this to happen? All of the time, all of the money, all of the resources, but then all of the love also. You talked about this community that formed around you, even to just make the adoption of Ruth possible. Why would God allow all this to happen? These are the questions you're wrestling through.
Absolutely. And one of the first people I called after we lost Ruth was the director of her former orphanage, Mandy Sido. And Mandy said to me, Meadow, when I sent Ruth to America, I knew that she had these, complicated medical issues, but my prayer for her that she would live long enough to know that she was loved. She said, God brought her to you, and she knew that. And I thought about the neurologist who said Ruth wouldn't know the difference. And my husband reminded me, even in the ache of losing Ruth, that it was worth it because she did know the difference, because she had a family. And the ache I felt, I could only imagine the ache the father feels when he sees these children without homes or children with profound special needs. And they're still waiting to know his love, but Ruth knew that love.
You later found out that Ruth was diagnosed or had, what was it called?
Kernicterus. Right, and so we didn't even realize until after Ruth had passed away that she had what is in the Western world a rare condition caused by the excess of bilirubin, the neurotoxin that causes jaundice, very common in children, but in a premature baby, in Ruth's case, that is what caused all of the disabilities that she lived with.
What is the legacy of Ruth today? You had her for 7 years. What is one thing you think will live on when it comes to Ruth, and in your church community as well?
Absolutely. Well, one reason I wrote the book was to share her story, not only to remember God's faithfulness and the miracles he did in our life, but also to share that with families who may be raising children with disabilities or even caring for an elderly loved one, or they're just going through a place of suffering and it feels like they're at a dead end or they're all alone. And my hope is that they will know, one, how profoundly loved they are by God, and two, that they would know his faithfulness.
The name of the book is Redeeming Ruth. Everything life takes, love restores. The proceeds of this book.
Yes, 100% of the personal proceeds from this book benefit orphans and people with disabilities in Uganda.
God bless you, Meadow. Thank you for
you.
your story. You can get this book at our e-store. Stay with us. We'll be right back.